Holiday guys, and we're back. Another week, another episode, and today we sit down with Kat Perez, who is a who goes to UOG and is studying and majoring in agriculture. Kat, thank you so much, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, and then if you guys don't know, we did feature her for this week's Culture Club. So if you want to watch more of that, you can check out our YouTube and our Instagram for that segment. But for this one, Kat, it's like I said, it's more like the Culture Club, but in a longer version. We get to sit down and kind of chop it up and learn more about you and what you're doing and know what you're going to do next and stuff like that. So let's start there. Let's go to the beginning. Tell us more about you and what you do.
So aside from school, I do school and work. I do garden at home. I'm 3 years into it, so I'm trying to focus on what crops I really like to do and what I know the market needs or what's in demand, which for me, I really want to do root crops. Those are my favorite. Definitely calamansi and doni.
Wow.
Yeah, those are my three main right now that of course I'm going to do a little bit of like the cash crops like beans, eggplant, cucumbers and stuff, but those are mainly for my consumption and me and my family.
And, and I think one of the reasons why I wanted to sit down and chat with you is, of course, you're doing that, but to really get to know why you got into it. I mean, you talk about this generation. It's you don't see a lot of kids in this generation who's literally going back into the gardens and getting their hands dirty and planting and seeing their plants grow, and from there they take it off the ground and they cook it. So we don't see a lot of kids doing agriculture. There's a lot of biology and all these awesome fields that are, like I said, it's amazing that the generation is getting into those. But agriculture is one of those that it's kind of like people are just like, oh, you do agriculture? Whoa, wow, really? Why? So why? Like, what got you into, or what made you fall in love with agriculture?
So it was when I took a break from school. I was actually in the biology program. And I was working at the same time, so it was a little difficult for me because the biology program it's really intense. So I just needed a break. I needed to figure out if I really wanted to stick with biology because I didn't want to waste money, failing classes, and it's not where my heart is, So I took a 1.5-year break. Within that break, I was working mostly, and then I can't remember, but someone had given me a plant. And I was just like, oh, I haven't touched dirt since my mama was alive, And when I planted that plant, it had flourished. Like I was ecstatic to harvest just that. I think it was an eggplant, but I only was able to harvest 5 eggplants. Wow. But just within those 5 eggplants, we made the coconut milk.
Oh,
yeah.
what?
We barbecued the eggplant, and then you make it coconut milk, and then I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, because I love cooking too, and I love eating. Like food is something me and my family always love to be around. That's one of our favorite activities is to go out and eat. But yeah, it was after that I decided to go pick up seeds to test my limit, with it. And when I first germinated, I remember it's on my plant Instagram, but I do remember germinating pole beans. Wow. And the next day they started sprouting. And I mean, thinking about it now, it was like, I know that beans are one of the easiest to germinate. Right. But when I didn't know it back then, I was still really excited. And I stuck with that feeling, even though I know what I know now, I know my feeling was valid then because it brought me so much joy, and I decided to pursue it, and I'm so glad I did.
That's awesome. And like you said, you went from that, and then you talk about, I remember in your interview for the kamuti is you made your first batch of, you grew it, and then you pull it off the ground, and then you cooked it, and you had your family,
like a
taste.
Little piece, even though it was a little piece, I wanted everyone to taste what that one took me like a 1.5 years to finally have that crop.
So that's amazing. Like I said, we talk about you falling in love with agriculture and sticking to it. You didn't just give up. You talked about taking a break from biology, and then now getting into agriculture, and then you're continuing this. And like I said, you went from that to your garden. So let's talk about the stuff that you have in your garden.
Right now, I recently moved, so right now I'm basically starting over.
Okay.
But I do have some fruit tree seedlings. Of course, my kamuti, gotta have that. Just germinated. I have seedling trays with like tomatoes, kabocha squash, watermelon. I'm basically starting from ground zero, so I don't have much, but we're getting there.
Yeah. So how's your classes and what you're learning here at UOG, the agriculture program? How's that helped you with your gardening?
Oh, a lot of it is the necessary fertilizers, what age the plant needs, and how much of fertilizer they need, and pests. Pests was a big problem for me because, like, you know, when you go online, you Google, they give you all kinds of recipes and all kinds of pesticides to use, and then it's hard to know what really works too because we're on Guam. So when I had my professors, you know, the ag professors are like the greatest because on our group chats, if we have a problem with our plant, we just take a picture. Sir, what's this? Sir, what's this? Ma'am, what's this? So I take it's a lot more scientific. Like I know exactly what my plant needs, so I can, so they can grow better and grow more for me and my family and for my friends who I think with each year I've started planting, I was able to distribute more crops out to different, like to not just my household, to my other family's household, to my friend's household, you know?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's amazing. I like to talk about, you know, your first ever plants. Your friend just gave you a seed and you just tried it out. And then from there, you saw something grow and saw something not only grow, but to take and eat and that it's healthy. So that's amazing to see it from you went from that to now you're learning all these ways to do it the right way, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, right. It's like like the way to treat it in this way, like
exactly.
Don't put too much of this and that,
and like placement too is a big one. Some plants like direct sun, some plants like indirect sun. So you learn a lot about spacing, and how to manage your area. Because if you have a small area, you can do like intercropping or I forget the term, but you have like this big tree and then it has a shade, but it still gets sun from the plant, so you plant around it, and then you learn about like what crops are good to plant next to each other. Companion planting.
Wow.
That's what it is.
Wow. See, like all these, they're like, I wouldn't know that. Like I didn't know. Like I would just plant, you know, a totally different, wrong plant next to, you know, the plant that you're not supposed to plant next to. So I think, you know, stuff like that is cool, and I think it's literally like helped you when now you're set and you have this vision and you know how to do it the right way. So, you know, that way you have crops that are flourishing. So that's amazing.
The thing I learned too about agriculture, there really isn't a right way. Like everyone finds their own way of doing it, and you get to the ultimate goal, which is to harvest your crop and to share it, you know. But it's that journey when you do, like, you test out different recipes. Because sometimes I used to do like a dunny spray with soap, and for my aphids and mites, and it was for my cucumbers. Someone else's house, it didn't work for them.
Oh.
Yeah, so they could, like, the aphids there could be like immune to it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So it's talk about that, like the environment of how a plant where a plant, you know, is growing, it affects it and stuff like that. So those little details, they do count. That's awesome. Well, guys, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, you know, we'll talk more about Kat's gardening and how she went from just feeding her family, letting her family try it, to taking it out into the public, and how she's done that. So we'll talk about that coming up after this break. You're watching the One Micronesia podcast, and we'll be right back. Half a day and welcome back. One Micronesia podcast. We're still here with Kat Perez, a student here at UOG who's studying about agriculture, and not only studying, but she's doing agriculture. That's so cool. I mean, you talk about somebody who's just there in class, is taking notes and doing the assignment, but at the same time, she's actually at home. She has her own garden, and her family has a garden. So that's something that's cool. So Kat, let's talk about it. Your garden at home. We learned that, you know, you started from just a seed that your friend gave you, and then now you're cooking, you're growing these amazing things that you're pulling out of the ground and feeding, and then you're having your family try it. And then now, you know, you've gone from that to kind of getting out to the public. You talk about in your segment of Culture Club, you talked about, you know, how people are asking you for seeds. So let's talk about that. Like how did you go from just Kat and garden at home to Kat out in the public and sharing with the community?
So when I started my planting journey, I started my Instagram at the same time, my plant Instagram. I wanted to, document my failures and success, all the good and bad. And it was through that, when I was posting, I was germinating a lot of seeds, and I had way too much for my plot, or for me to manage at the time. And so I was like, does anybody want? And then I was like, maybe I should try selling, like $1, $2 for the plant itself. And then I realized like the plants do good for selling, but for me I felt it was better if I grew the plant and then I could sell the produce.
Wow.
So that's where I was at with my Instagram too. I was letting my plants grow, and then I would post what I'd harvest.
And how was that? So like I said, you felt this feeling of happiness when you had your family try your kamuti for the first time. You have it being cooked, right? Like a piece each, right? And then how does that feeling when you take all these produce that you've grown over time to the public, and how is that reaction from the people coming to your booth or people you seeing or buying your stuff, your produce?
I remember this one season I was growing sigaditas, and man, they were getting this big. And usually when sigaditas get this big, it's hard. But mine were still, like, it was perfect.
Wow.
And so when I was giving, this is when I was giving to my friends now. One of my best friends, she was like, Tananam Diary Sigaditas is guaga, is beast. And I was like, yeah, it is. That fertilizer or that compost is working, because that's also when I started my composting.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's like I'm saying, like you've learned so much from just like using whatever dirt is there, and now you're adding into it, and not in a chemical way, but you're putting in the right stuff to grow these amazing produce. So that's
it's
awesome.
like my food waste from home going
Wow.
back into my plants to feed my plants, and then it's going to feed me in turn. That's the whole cycle of.
So now I'm thinking you're buying these from the store, but no, this is you're literally making at home.
Yeah, my compost. I have a small little kind of like a wheel, like a barrel thing that you can just turn when you need to.
Oh.
So that's what I do with my compost. So it's just, you need your greens and your browns. Greens is the nitrogen source, and your browns are your carbon source. Yeah, so that's just like brown leaves, paper. I mostly use paper and brown leaves. And then the greens is the food waste from when we're cooking. So like the onion peels, garlic peels.
Wow.
Rinds, banana peels, all that stuff.
Wow. Like I said, it's so cool to see like how you've evolved as a gardener, pretty much.
Yeah.
From just learning how to, I remember in the segment, it was something that really meant a lot to you when you were with your grandparents, and you were telling a story about how you would sit on your grandma's lap, and then your grandpa will make the hole, and then you just pass over the plant, so you went from that to actually doing it, and now you're doing big things. That's so cool.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So you're out there, and then let's talk about because you do honey too. So now you've kind of evolved. You talked about going from just growing the smallest of plants to now you've evolved into, you've added beekeeping to
my life.
Yeah,
now I'm getting into
so
livestock.
Cool.
It's crazy.
So let's talk about that. How did you get into beekeeping? And
so there's a beginner farmer rancher development program with the Research Corporation of Yogi, which is new. I think this is the first time they've ever had a program like this, and I'm taking like all the opportunity I can with this program, like doing the internships and the workshops that they do. And this beekeeping workshop was one of them. Someone had reached out to me on Instagram if I was interested in the workshop.
Wow.
Because I had already been pursuing plants for so long, and so they knew like my passion for agriculture was there. And I knew nothing about beekeeping at the time, and she had told me that we were gonna get a bee box. But when you're really excited, you're just like, yeah, I'll do it. And then
I'm down.
I sat down with it, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have a bee box, and I'm gonna get honey. So I had to then I started planning out where I'm gonna put it. And then I didn't dive into much about what like the biology of bees and like what they need, because I didn't know what species of bee we had here. So when that workshop came and we, Chris Rosario did like that presentation, we learned about bee biology, bee behavior, bee pests, what we need to do for the bees, you know, which isn't much. They're the easiest livestock, I would think. But yeah, that's how I got into beekeeping.
Wow. And then, you know, I remember I saw a picture that you were selling, you know, you're selling honey. Like that's awesome. Like you're literally doing you're growing and you're looking after these bees, and then they provide honey, and then you take that to, so how's the reaction out there when people are trying out your honey for the first time?
Oh my gosh. So when I harvested almost a little over 20 jars of honey. Some were 8 ounce and some were 16 ounce. People were already messaging, because I was posting about it as I was going through the journey of hand squeezing my honey. People were already messaging me, can I buy one? Can I buy one? Wow. So I started putting Post-its on everyone's honey. And by the time Green Night came along, I only had 7 jars. I didn't even have any I didn't think to save a jar for myself until I distributed everyone's honey that that was my friends and family. Like I didn't charge them. I wanted them to try my honey. Like that was something I was excited for a whole year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So a majority of my first batch went to my friends and family, and then they loved it. Like everyone, most of the feedback I got was like, oh, I could drink this with a straw. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
They said it was like it had like a slight floral taste to it. Ooh. Which made sense because the area I was living had like ylang ylang, chain of love. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Like I said, from starting, and then you had your own garden. Now you're adding beekeeping and honey making to the resume there. That's a pretty epic resume. That's awesome. You know, guys, we're gonna take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk to Kat and find out what's next for her. Is she gonna add more onto that resume? Or is she gonna start? You know, I don't know what else is there out of the world that I'm pretty sure she can find and try. So we'll find out what she's got next. Coming up. You're watching the One Micronesia podcast, and we'll be right back. Hopefully, and we're back. One Micronesia podcast. We're still here with Kat Perez, a student here at the UOG studying agriculture. And not only that, like I said, we talk about studying. She's in class. She's learning about these things, and after she's done, she's taking it out to her garden at home, and then applying all that she's learned. She went from gardening. Now she's added beekeeping to the resume there. So, and then honey making. Wow, that's amazing. So Kat, like I know before we threw it to break, like I was teasing, like, you know, what's next? So what are you gonna add on to that resume? What is next for Kat Perez?
So my dad and I are planning on becoming bona fide farmers. That is like in January 22, that was my goal. That's my goal for the year. That's what I wanted. And then we're gonna finally do it, hopefully before the fall semester starts. I'm also getting a hydroponics system set up at my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. See, told you guys.
And then my dad and I also want to do chickens. So since we're already cleaning the back, you know, we're gonna get the chicken set up. I want a goat. That is my one goal in the next 2 or 3 years.
Get a goat. Wow.
I want a goat.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, talk about, you know, like you started with your little plants, the seed that you got. You started with little plants. You went to that to more, you know, your kamuti, to that, to beekeeping, and then now you're adding all of that. It's honestly nice. And I know you talked about it in your interview that like each year you're learning something each year, as you know, when you first started. So that's pretty awesome to keep doing that each and every year. That's awesome. What else is the next after? So you guys are going to add that to, how about school? What's, when it comes to, you know, what are you looking forward to?
Definitely graduating soon. Afterwards, I do want to pursue maybe a master's or PhD in plant pathology, ecology, or environmental science. I love research and I love being out in the field, which is why I work at a farm. Yeah. So, you know, Kat, tell us more about, you know, future pop-ups. I know there's going to be a lot of events coming up. So is there any specific events? Are you going to do more of that coming up? I think by the time I get my bona fide farmer certificate, I'm not sure what more requirements I need to be selling my produce at Chamorro Village.
Wow.
Yeah, my friend is really encouraging me.
You should.
And then by the time I have my next harvest, which is this weekend,
Nice.
there'll be a booths and bootlegs, I believe.
Definitely, you can catch Kat at like all these other events that's coming up.
Yeah, if you just stay tuned on my Instagram, that's usually when I'll post it, when I'll be.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, continue to do that. And like I said, I mean, we did see you at your work on Culture Club at Farm to Table, which is literally amazing. And I hope other. We'll get to that in just a little bit in the next part. Where you talk to the younger generation and see to kind of encourage them to kind of get back into what we're doing, what you're doing, because it's amazing, and because it's what our ancestors were doing.
Yeah.
Like they were growing their own food and hunting and fishing. I mean, that's what the lifestyle was back then. So it's nice to see you and this generation and what you're pursuing, and hopefully people who follow your Instagram get inspired. So we'll come back. We're gonna take a break. We'll come back and we'll have you do that message to them. So you're watching the One Micronesia podcast, and we'll be right back. Half day, and we're back. The last part of the podcast. So we're here with Kat. So Kat, the last part here is literally last remarks. So we're talking, and I think like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I said that one of the reasons why I want to get you on here, because you're doing something that not a lot of people in this Asian generation are doing. Like they're getting back out there to the gardens, getting their hands dirty, growing and seeing their plants grow and pulling out of the ground and into the pot and cooking it, and then having the family try it. And that's something that not a lot of kids in this generation are doing, and you're literally pursuing it. So what's the message to those to this generation, and kind of like encourage them to get back into it? Because like I said, we talked about it towards the end. It was our ancestors were doing this thousands and thousands of years ago, and we just kind of forgot, because now you can just buy that at the store. So
Yeah.
kind of talk more about that.
I would say just keep on doing what you're doing, even if it's on a small scale. Not everyone can handle this, I guess, like the farming aspect of it. And even if you're doing indoor plants, that's still planting, like your hands are still getting in the dirt. You're still connecting with the land in that way, and you're connecting with the plant, and you're learning how to take care of something other than yourself. And, you're respecting that plant, a little goes a long way, especially in agriculture, and you'd be surprised how fulfilling it is when your plant is dying, and then you notice it, and then you take care of it, and you bring it back to life, and then it thrives even more. Then it just starts getting really, like, you really want to keep doing it, you want to get, I want to try this plant out. I want to try this plant out. And then it starts from there.
Wow. And then also a message to, if people kind of are maybe not, they want to get into agriculture, but how can people support agriculture, especially here in Guam?
I know most farmers and farm organizations are on Instagram, so even sharing their pop-ups, go and support the farmers markets that they do, just sharing, even buying the groceries itself, that's supporting the farmers, and that's supporting keeping the income here. And we want to keep it local. We don't want to rely on these imported goods anymore, because our people have done it before, and we can do it again now, and we are doing it.
Amen. All right. Well, Kat, before we let you go, let the people know where they can follow you, or follow your farming IG.
My farming IG is at Tananam Diaries on Instagram.
And then, like you said, that's where you're going to be posting all these events that you're going to go to. Wow, awesome. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up another One Micronesia podcast. Kat, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you so much.
This is fun. We're out here at UOG filming this amazing episode, so thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll catch you guys on the next one. My name is Victorious, and I got to say peace.
Shoots.